Hello everyone, and welcome to YellowCoversExplained. Today we'll be looking at Magic the Gathering, and how to get started in Commander. In this first episode, we'll go into the basics of Magic, and the types of cards in the game, while episode 2 will go into some more specifics of play. So maybe you've seen Magic, or you heard people play it, but they say a lot of weird words that don't mean anything. Well, you're in the right place. We'll cover a quick overview of how each card type works and what they mean. So let's go through each type of card and shed some light on why you'll need them in Magic the Gathering. The first type of cards we'll be talking about are the permanents. Lands, creatures, artifacts, and enchantment cards are all permanents. That means, generally speaking, once you play them, they'll stay with you until someone destroys them, or they say otherwise. Lands. They're the first type of cards we'll be talking about, as they're the most important part of Magic. Without lands, you can't play spells. Spells are important. Basic lands, tap. That means to turn sideways in Magic. This shows the resource has been used, and then the land adds 1 mana of the stated type. Now, modern lands don't use the old text that said add 1 color of the specific mana, but what we use now are these little symbols on the land card. They're a little bit hard to see, so I'll see if I can get one closer up, but that is the mountain land symbol, so that's for red. And each land has a symbol to tell you what type of color it adds. Mana can be viewed as a currency, like coins or energy from other games. While discussing lands, we could talk about what things cost. This card says it costs 1 black mana, as we can see right there. So what that means is if I were to have a swamp in play, just like that, and I had this in my hand, I could tap it to add 1 black mana, and then I could use that black mana to play that creature. This card has the number 2 in a clear circle and a green forest symbol. That does not mean that this bloated toad costs 2 green mana. It actually means that it costs 2 of any color you'd like and 1 green mana specifically. So for this example, I could use a blue, a white for the 2 of any color, and then the green as the last one, and then I could play the toad. This card, on the other hand, has hybrid mana. You can either use a white or a blue to pay for either mana pip that is required. It also has 1 of any color. So for example, I can use the black mana that I would have from tapping this to pay for the 1 of any color, and then a white and a blue, because both pips take either, and then I could play this guy. So now that you know what lands do, how do you play them? Once per turn on your turn, you may play a land from your hand. You cannot play more than 1 land on a turn unless a card says otherwise. And there's no limit to how many land cards you can have in play at any time. Creatures are the second most important thing in Magic. We've seen these guys before, so let's look into them a little more. All creatures have power and toughness, so it can help to think of it like health and damage. These cards also have creature type. This bloated toad, for example, says summon toad, so we know he's a toad. This grave crawler says he's a zombie, so we know he's a zombie. And all that makes sense. But what if it says 2 things? This guy right here. In that case, the creature is both types. If a card says all humans gain +1 power, Ragadraga will get +1 power, even though he's a human and a boar. Now that we know what type a creature is, and what power and toughness is, let's see an example. This particular bloated toad has 2 power and 2 toughness. And this grave crawler only has 2 power and 1 toughness. So what would happen if they fought? Well, in Magic, both creatures deal damage at the same time. So even though the bloated toad has more power and toughness than the grave crawler has enough power to take out the toad's health. So both cards would go away. But what if the bloated toad fought against something smaller than him? Like a rat. This rat creature says it only has 1 power and 1 toughness, so if the toad fought this rat, the rat would die. The toad would be hurt for 1 damage until the end of the turn. At the end of your turn, your creatures heal back to full health from any fighting they've done. All the creature cards I've shown so far have had some kind of text on them, like flying or cycling. We'll go more into those next time, but generally know that having creatures to fight for you is good. Then we have the artifacts. They come in many forms, but we'll be looking at this soul ring and this bone saw as examples. First to look at, we have the soul ring. This is a mana artifact. It costs 1 mana of any color to play, and once you've played it, it works just like a land. You can tap it to add 2 colorless mana to spend on spells. Colorless mana can only be used to pay for the number part of the card, not the colored mana. The next type of artifact we have is the equipment. This modifies a creature you control and normally gives them some kind of upgrade, such as this bone saw, which gives a creature I control +1/+0 once it's equipped. This says it costs 0 in the circle. That means you can play it for free. Next, I want to give this bone saw to this very nice bloated toad. How do I do that? I need to pay 1 of any colored mana to attach it to. So we'll pretend I still have my soul ring here. I would tap it for 2 colorless mana, and I can use that colorless mana to give the bone saw to my bloated toad. He'll now have 3 damage and 2 health, or 3 power, 2 toughness. There are more artifacts and all different types. You'll see lots while you're out casting spells, so just make sure to read the card and you'll figure it out. Enchantments are like artifacts. They stick around and they normally give you a nice benefit. Here we have 2 types of enchantments, the basic one and the aura. The basic one, A Tale of Two Ages as our example here, it gives any creature which is currently enchanted a +2 power and +2 toughness buff, normally referred to as simply a +2/+2. How does a creature become enchanted? That's where this aura card comes into play. We'll use our friend the bloated toad again as an example. Now, Curiosity says, pay 1 blue mana and enchant creature, and then it gives the creature the enchantment's effect. This one says when it deals damage to an opponent, I may draw a card. That's nice. Let's put it on the toad. Other type of enchantments can include sagas and classes. Sagas are enchantments that go away after a set period of time, but each turn you get a new and exciting effect. Classes are enchantments that you can pay mana to upgrade as the game goes on, giving you more and more benefits. The final 2 types of cards we'll be discussing are non-permanents. These spells have a one-time effect and then go to the graveyard, so let's check them out. Instants are where magic can become very fun for a lot of people. Instants were also once called interrupts, as shown on this old printing of Dark Ritual. Since they could interrupt on an opponent's turn, they are one of the few types of cards that can be played outside of your turn, and some almost require you to do so. If you have trouble remembering when you can play the spell, you can try to think of an instant as a wizard casting a spell out of his or her wand. It only lasts for a moment, but it can do some crazy stuff. This card simply says, counter target spell. That means as long as you have the mana resource available, on another person's turn, you can send the spell that they're playing to the graveyard, and they don't get anything. These types of cards can be very powerful. The trade-off is that you have to have the lands or artifacts available to tap for mana when it's not your turn. So, make sure if you have an instant spell you'd like to play, don't tap down all your lands. Last but not least, we'll be looking at sorceries. It's the final type that we haven't checked out yet, and they cover a wide range of effects. Sorceries can only be played during your turn and have similar effects to instants, just with larger effects because they can only be played on your turn. Take this. This is Plague Wind. It says, destroy all creatures you don't control. They can't be regenerated. And that's a pretty strong effect, so it can only happen on your turn. Well, that's about it for card types of Magic. There are thousands of cards with even more effects and wild things to explore. I hope this helped you understand Magic a little bit more, and I hope you have a great day.